Okay, we have Eric from Ohio. Welcome, Eric. We have Stacy from California. Welcome, Stacy. We have Hasib from London. All the way from London. Awesome. Welcome. Okay, let's start in one more minute here. Give people a chance to log in. So where else are people joining us from today? All right, we have Brittany from California. Welcome, Brittany. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Latest Cloud Project Management Trends. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You're listening and using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane, and in the dial-in information will be displayed. In order to make this a more dynamic webinar, we encourage you to please submit text questions to today's presenter via the questions pane on the control panel. You may send your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will answer them during the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. Please also note that the presentation is available for download via our attendee control panel along with additional handouts, and you will also receive a recording after today's webinar. Now I would like to introduce our speaker today, Jim Smith. Jim is a co-founder and EVP of Cloud Solutions at LoadSpring. Since LoadSpring's start 17 years ago, Jim has made it a mission to perfect LoadSpring's special brand of technical and management expertise. He is utterly committed to our client's success and the tech side of the business. To simplify Jim's highly critical role as our cloud solutions leader, he ensures that our hundreds of apps play nicely together while marrying the right infrastructure to our customers' diverse cloud requirements. He leads in every stage of engineering ideal cloud environments for true project success. In his pre-LoadSpring days, Jim served as a functional leader at Parametric Technology. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from RPI. Now, Jim, please take it away.
Thank you, Christiane. No pressure there at the intro. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the work you and your team have done to get us set up for the presentation today. Thank you to all the attendees who are joining us today. As discussed previously, what I'm going to talk about over the next 40 minutes or so are the latest trends we're seeing in cloud project management. As Christian said, as we go, if there are questions that arise, please feel free to type them in and shoot them across. I'll try and pay attention and address them as they come through. If I miss them during a particular slide, we'll jump on at the end and we have a whole set of time set aside for that. So today we're going to talk about these cloud forward trends. We'll talk about LoadSpring's experience in the project world over the last 18 years. And how we've seen customers successfully deploy their cloud strategies. I'm going to hand you over a checklist that allows you to go through and look at your own cloud strategy and options and endeavors to make sure that there's no little things that you may miss along the way as you evaluate your options. We'll talk a lot about hybrid clouds especially, and the way that you exchange data between them. We have lots of customer examples of how they've been successful at it and delivering their projects on time and on budget. We're going to talk about joint ventures, partners, bringing third parties into your project environment that give you the control, the flexibility, the access, the support and performance that you need. A big trend these days are integrations between cloud hosted applications and data sources that may be on your local network. They could be on a partner's network. They could be in a third-party cloud. So I'm going to show you how LoadSpring deploys it today, how our customers take advantage of web services and APIs and different types of scheduled or automated or triggered live integrations. We're going to talk about how we can pull together many different data sources and applications into a single view. So your executives get their portfolio reports, your dashboards, your project team members get access to the specific information they need, and how that may come from multiple systems. Like I may pull scheduled data from Oracle Primavera P6, I may need to pull cost data from an Aries Prism G2, and how we can pull together in a single report, single dashboard, those SPIs and CPIs. At the end, again, we'll leave some time for any general questions and comments. So first, I wanted to talk about the numbers. So these are the trends that we've seen over time. I also want to give credit to IDC, Forbes, and the AGC for some of the data that I used from their reports. So back in 2009, 2010, the government really termed this cloud-first strategy. In that instance, they were trying to close almost 11,000 data centers, consolidate them, take advantage of economies of scale, less servers to manage. Well, that cloud-first trend has continued. This year, IDC predicts $9 billion in the federal sector on cloud spending alone. Now, that cloud-first initiative, since 1999, LoadSpring has been called an application service provider. We've kind of been providing that same level of service. It's just as the marketing has changed over time. It's server-based computing. It's getting access to scalable infrastructure, performance, etc. Now, one of the biggest trends we've seen here is the way these hybrid clouds have grown. So in a hybrid environment, there's data on your own local premise. It could be an ERP system, it could be a document control system, and there's data out in the cloud. So your project management data in the cloud could be scheduled data. It could be for risk. It could be for earned value. So the way that Forbes came together and compared private, hybrid, and public clouds show you the breakdown in this graph on the right. So by industry, and I picked engineering, utility, transportation, some of LoadSpring's most powerful customers, greater than half of them in each instance are hybrid clouds. So we see that continuing to grow. In the last year, that hybrid cloud adoption has grown 3 times what it was previously. Now, as we've grown, as we've talked to new customers and things have changed over the last few years, we're hearing a lot these days about cloud only. It's an interesting idea. It's a little scary for me and for some of our customers, depending on the application. So you need to be selective in what is cloud only, what fits that model, and what fits maybe an on-premise or another hybrid version. So for 2018, over 80% of IT budgets in the firms that were surveyed by Forbes have shown they're committed to these cloud solutions. Now, what we hear more and more these days are CIOs coming to us saying, I want one cloud for each application. So a cloud for my HR vendor, a separate cloud for my CAD vendor, a separate cloud from potentially a cost control vendor. Be careful with the SaaS environments. They get very restrictive, namely when you get to upgrades. Do you get to control what version of an application you stay on? Right. So from a project perspective, if you're performing a large capital project and you're 4 years in, you don't want to have to change the version of the product if you're going to finish in 6 months or a year, if you don't have to. So you need to look for that. Also, on the SaaS side of things, look at cost. Typically, you may find that after 22 to 25 months, you're paying more now for licenses than you would have if you bought the licenses outright and put them in a cloud provider, in this case like LoadSpring. Lastly, the AGC provided us some data. Back in 2012, 17% of the IT organizations they surveyed expected to be using the cloud. Fast forward 5 years, and it's actually greater than 85%. So the adoption is obviously here. Now, to add some fun to what we're doing and to keep everybody engaged, I'm going to submit a poll to the GoToWebinar. So I want to see your experiences with the cloud. So the question is this thing on? Does the cloud work for your production level projects? So if you could go through and choose, yes for those successes, no if you're seeing failures, or maybe TBD if you haven't tried it yet. I'll give this one a little more time. Okay, we're filling up. So it's the trend is good so far. So more than half of you have voted. Over a third are saying yes, it's been successful. The other third is saying I haven't tried it yet. No one's saying no. So no one's come out to say that the cloud has failed on their projects. So it's interesting data. Thank you all for the feedback here. When we're done, we'll be certain to share this with you as well as the handouts that Christian talked about earlier. Okay, as we move on. So we've talked about the numbers. Now I want to talk about some of the key initiatives that our customers have used and they've executed to achieve their project cloud strategies. Specifically, why they moved to the cloud, it's been the same for many people for a long time. Forrester put together research to talk about the flexibility, agility, and speed that we need. That's why we're driving in this instance. It's really about the business outcomes. And so what we want to see is that this is a way to help my business grow. This is a way that's going to help me win more work. So I'm going to go out there, and it could be in a sales pursuit perspective. So some of our large construction managers go out there and they're using the cloud to their advantage in the pre-sales perspective, where they're going after new work and showing how specific they are to the pursuit that they're running for with tools from BIM components to show how I can link a 3D model to my schedule and really show the graphics at the end of how long it's going to take and what it will look like at every stage along the way. We're also seeing from those top E&R firms and those Fortune 50 firms, they want to reduce their risk. So the way that LoadSpring has set this up, we can go through and help you deploy the products that quickly, that fast, that reliably, that it becomes rinse and repeat. And we talk about the project toolbox. So it's something you can pick up and move on to different systems very quickly. So from a deployment perspective, a lot of customers come to us and asking, where do they start? Oops. Let's see, my screen's still here. They want to ask us where to start. How do I determine what this cloud is going to look like? So we've got this whole idea of, investigate the environment, talk to your friends, see what they're doing, what works for them, imitate what's been successful for them, identify those gaps, innovate what's going to be specific to your model, and then implement it and go in that continuous circle. So defining who's going to be on this team. What other maybe applications do I need to talk to? What security roles do these people need? So that helps me drive the security side of things, the who questions here. What type of information I need access to? I'm going to go through this list multiple times, and I may screen down that I've gone from 100 people, maybe it's 80 people, to in the end, well, only 20 of them need this power user app. The other 80 are consumers. They need to interact with the data, maybe on a dashboard on demand, or they may get an email once a week with a PDF of what's happening. It allows your schedulers to really control what's being published to them on a given basis. I've added the why component here because you need to continually go through the cycle and simplify it, make it easy. Once that comes through, it'll be even better. Now, once you've identified your requirements, that's where we see customers lose the most amount of time, not knowing what they want. Now you can go out there and you can identify what could potentially solve this problem for me. Once you've identified a few of those vendors, well, now I need to look at the deployment model. Is this something that I can pick an application up off my network and move it to the cloud, this lift and shift approach? Or maybe I need to upgrade. Maybe I can't get to the cloud and take advantage of that new modern technology and browsers and plugins and security unless I upgrade. So that all has to be defined, and then eventually you build out your model. Now, finally, try it. LoadSpring offers demos, trials, evaluations. You can log in a matter of a couple of minutes. You can tell this is going to work. If you want to go one step further and send us a model that you can try performance out with for a few hours or days, you can do that. Some customers say, well, I need to pilot. A customer of ours, a New England airport operator, they piloted a tool on a $150 million terminal renovation. At the end of it, they knew that was a tool for them, and they could move forward with it. So the biggest thing you need to know when you're doing these pilots is, what are your test scripts? What is it that you're going to go through in this instance? Make sure it's an apples-to-apples comparison if you compare multiple tools. And then finally, you don't have to follow the big bang approach and send it to everybody at once. It's not a shut your system off Friday night, turn the new system on for Monday morning. You can roll this out in phases, be it by application, by database in our instance. You can do it by regions. It all depends on the way your business is structured, but these are all available to you and things to consider. Now, this slide, I like this: select strategically, execute flawlessly. This lets you build your perfect cloud. Okay, you choose what applications you want available to the team. What do they need to see? This lets you pick from your project toolbox, right? This isn't a limit on the applications in LoadSpring's case that we deliver. There are over 250 applications that we deliver these days. This is just a sample of a few. Some of our customers come along and say, all right, I've got a new project starting up, and it's for a rail project on the West Coast. Well, the owner's dictating that we used innate hard dollar estimating. We want to use it with P6 for scheduling. I know that the engineers are giving us microstation drawings and project-wise from a document control perspective, and I want to tie it into ecosys cost. So you can pick your map, your model here as you go, allow you to define what applications you want to run. Then you can take them and you can tie them in up or down. You can integrate them back to your ERP systems because a lot of this data doesn't reside in one place. It needs to push back and forth between them. Secondly, you want to tie it to maybe BI systems. So I can take a tool like a Power BI. I can pull data from multiple data sources down here, and you can give the users that one dashboard, one report to see everything from. So think of it as it's a plug-and-play project cloud. You pick the applications you want, they get started. Now, some of these applications, they may be very old. I'm not going to lie. We have some customers that have applications that are over 12 years old, but they're still in use today. The software vendors aren't updating them anymore, but they work, they're reliable. These customers have decades of training and documentation and process built around these apps. We're allowing them to keep running it here. Now, they have a project that may close out in a year. They don't want to upgrade it yet. They're afraid of what that may change. So the second question, another fun one here that I'll put out to the team. This one is called, maybe it is really your father's Buick. Tell me how old the ancient applications are that you may need to support your projects. Right? I've had folks come in and say, well, I've got P3 that's still in use on certain projects. I've got one customer that's still using Expedition 8.5. If anybody remembers that and wants to go back in the day. Out of curiosity, I'd like to just see, does anyone have these old applications that are coming out? I know in many instances, they're working, they're known. As these customers upgrade to the newer versions and newer platforms, they still need to support these legacy apps. So it gives you an option. At this point, we're still collecting responses, but about halfway through, and 50% are within 5 years old. Some are over 10 years old. So it's curious to see because there's so many new applications out there that are modern, they're cloud ready, they're mobile available. They don't provide all the functionality that some of the old proven tools do. So in our instance, we can still take a 16-bit application and deliver it to your team members, even though they're on 64-bit workstations now. So we balance that with access, with security, with any of the tools that you would need. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out and jump on to the next slide. So we've talked about projects, okay? There are different deployment models for different types of environments. From a corporate enterprise perspective, traditionally, I want one version, right? It's one ERP system. I can't have more than that. I need to have one running. On the project side, though, it's different. Some of our customers, they're running 5 different versions of a scheduling tool simply because they have that many business units or customers or different needs where the functionality may change from one to the other. So in this instance, we're showing 3 different applications across 3 projects, designated here as the trailers. And they allowed you to go to the aspect, let me go over here, of what versions are for which project. Maybe the owner dictated what needs to happen on that particular project. Maybe you need to give them back a version or backup of the databases when it's all done, and that's the tool that they know. So the main thing for this slide is that the project rules, right? The apps are subordinate. The apps are here to support the project. So we have another question, another fun poll for us here. My question is, who's afraid of the big bad upgrade? So think about your operating system, right? Patch Tuesday. Think about browser plugins being updated. Think about the application being upgraded. what do you think is most likely to derail or disrupt your projects? Okay, so again, on this one, just look for that multi-version support. You don't want to be forced into a new application version to upgrade, to upset the apple cart when everything's working along smoothly in the way that you need it. In this instance, you may very well have one version across multiple projects, and we can still support that across different regions based on the space you need, but it just gives you control over your own destiny. It's not, LoadSpring wouldn't be forcing you to upgrade in this instance. Okay, so 40% looks like the application is the biggest problem, which I would agree with. 40%, the plugins like Java and Citrix and such. No one picked the operating system, so that's a good thing. All right, I'll share these results. So now that you've gone through your requirements, what I need to provide access to, well, how are you going to do it? Okay, this is the LoadSpring cloud platform. This is a unified fit-for-purpose system. Okay, you can deliver applications, you can deliver databases, you can deliver reports, you can administer users based on line of business, based on region, based on project. So you really get control of the system. Right? You don't have to manage servers. You don't have to log on to servers on some back end and restart them or back them up. All that's done for you. The LoadSpring platform gives you the control of managing all of that directly through this environment, all with simple access administration for the users wherever they might be. Now, as we talk about those different regions, again, we're back to flexibility, agility, and speed. These are those project cloud toolboxes, right? I may have environments and efforts going on in the Americas that need a particular version, their own database. Could be on Oracle, could be on SQL, could be on MySQL. Doesn't matter. It's them, it's about the data. So you need a platform that lets you model your requirements to each project and region. It could be based on currency, it could be based on security, data sovereignty. All that will be built in here. Okay, we really look at the collaboration aspect of how this has been enabled in the last 10 years for everyone to be on the same page, to have the latest information at their fingertips. So having talked about those models, let's look at a requirements checklist. Okay, these are some of the things that we've seen customers come to us in the past. Well, top 10 E&R engineering firm came to us and said, "You're not going to believe it, but we did this on a different project, and they shut their cloud down every Saturday, all day for maintenance." And it was shocking to them, but it was in their terms. If they looked at the contract in more detail, they'd see how it was called out there. So make sure you read the fine print of those contracts as you get into them. The table on the right really breaks down functionality that LoadSpring's providing versus a hypercloud or a public cloud versus what you're doing in-house on your own systems. Okay, so all of these are things that you're going to need to make sure the requirements that the project has, that it's delivered for you. On the security side of things, you may have application data that's classified as red, right? It needs to be in a special facility, for official use only access. No one other than a U.S. citizen can even support the system. Those are things to watch for. Some of our international customers, they look at the data sovereignty of, I don't want any data in the United States through the Patriot Act. Okay, well in that case, we have clouds outside the United States. You could be in Canada, you could be in Europe, you could be in Asia Pac. So based on what your needs are, it could be legal needs from a data privacy perspective, it could be for licensing. One of our customers, a large construction manager in US and Canada, they have licenses for a particular CAD product that are only for use in Canada, and another set of licenses, the same product, same version, that are only for use in the US. Well, we can manage that, right? Between Canadian data centers, US data centers, it's still one large global cloud environment that they can get access to. So make sure that's all there. Watch for the blame game. So I talk about support. Make sure you know those lines of demarcation, right? What are you responsible for? What's your cloud service provider responsible for? Where does a software vendor come in? So let's make sure that it's clear before you enter that relationship who owns what. right? In our instance, LoadSpring is going to take ownership, and we're going to bring all the necessary parties to the table for you. If you're having a problem with an application and it's unclear, is it gray, is it a functional issue, is it a server issue? Sure, we can get to log files on the server, we can restart services, but we can't vet the data integrity. We're going to need your users, your power users, to tell us, no, it's a function isn't being calculated properly. So we work together in that instance. All that could be automated back. We'll talk about integration in a few slides to your specific environments for things like maybe a ServiceNow help desk. We've talked a little bit about upgrade strategy. You need to balance that bleeding edge, cutting edge. Do I need this latest, greatest functionality, or could it potentially introduce new bugs that we're not exposed to today and upset my project downstream? Last thing is global knowledge work. So another customer of ours that is developing high-end resorts, they have specific 3D modeling needs. They don't want folks traveling carrying 50 pounds worth of equipment in different laptops because, well, they need to support Synchro or Revit. They need special graphics for this one. All that can still be deployed through the LoadSpring Cloud with your high-end OpenGL type of graphics. Now, in their instance, they've got folks in the UK that are doing design work, and they're trading those models off to folks on the US West Coast, who's then trading those models off later in the day to folks in Malaysia. So it's the same model that's being worked on from the same environment, all the same versions. It gives you lots of control. Okay, let's talk about partners. Okay, as you bring on folks from inside your team, joint venture partners, non-employees, customers, contractors, we need to make sure that everyone has the access they need and that it's simple. So some things that we've done at LoadSpring is we've built an identity management platform into our cloud. So federation, SAML 2.0 federation gets you into the cloud, into LoadSpring. That means that if your user account is deactivated on your corporate network, you can't get into LoadSpring. It gives you the control and flexibility that you need. Also, if you're logged into your corporate network and you go to LoadSpring, you don't have to re-enter your credentials. You're automatically logged in. So federation gets you in without having to rekey your credentials. Now, once you're in LoadSpring and you choose to launch your applications, now we're doing single sign-on at the app level. So this is specifically to the app access. Okay, so in that instance, again, it's the look ma, no clicks type of environment where I click a button, it knows who I am, it automatically logs me in. I think the new number is 19 on average number of passwords we all need to remember each week. I know for me, there's at least 3 a week that I have to go through and reset. It could be my kid's milk money account at school. I haven't touched it in a month, so I got to go through and reset my password every time. You don't need that hassle with your project applications. Keep it easy. Now, one of our customers is doing some nuclear energy work in Turkey. In their instance, we wanted to make sure that not only does Jim have his username and password, but Jim's also got something that proves that it is really him logging in. So we do things like physical tokens, biometric tokens, digital certificates. So YubiKey is a tool that this particular customer uses so that when they log into LoadSpring, they have their YubiKey plugged into their USB on their laptop or computer. They push a button on it. It's okay, I've got your username, I've got your password, you've got your key plugged in, and you've activated it. So I know you are who you say you are. You know what the regional option does for us? It allows me to increase security on regions or users. So I may not require everybody to do it, right? But if I want to allow third parties into my system, they might not have an account on my corporate network. So how do I allow a consultant in? Well, I can provide both options. So you still control access. It is your cloud. They don't have to have user accounts on your network to still get into LoadSpring in this case. So from our perspective, 3 times the number of customers that used our identity management service in 2015 are using it now in 2017. So it's growing quickly. It's a big requirement from an IT perspective. Makes it easy to get folks in. Now, along those same lines, okay, now let's talk about how do we give them access to those project participants. So this image shows me my schedulers, right? I've got my power users at the top right. I've got my consumers kind of down at the lower left. I've got contributors in the middle there. Biggest group, in this case, are the consumers. But it shows they don't have to be project controls experts to spend time in the system and to get to data. This allows that fit-for-purpose platform to support the power users, the consumers, provide the access they need, be it view or edit. All that's built in here for you to make sure that the right role is tied to the right level of access. So I've got another poll question for you guys. Specifically, when we talk about identity management. So, do I know you? What sort of multi-factor authentication does your team use on their projects? Do you use biometric devices? Are there physical tokens like a YubiKey? Do you use digital certificates or even one-time passwords? And a one-time password would be something where you log in to a site and it acknowledges that, hey, this is the first time you've logged in from that browser or that PC. Let me text their phone and have them enter another code to make sure that they really are who they say they are. Do you use any of these models on your projects today? Again, the biometric components where it could be fingerprint, probably the most obvious. Then either physical tokens, digital certificates. Digital certificates are heavily used even in VPN connections. So when you want to connect to a remote location that's not accessible over the public internet, you have VPN back to that environment. Username and password, but you also have a certificate token with password. So, okay, well, I'm going to close this one out. We'll look for more responses here after. So you've got access to the system. We've gone through who needs what. Now I want to talk about integration. So with your applications in the cloud, how do I get them talking to one another? Right? This is supposed to be this great thing, right? It's a cloud environment where everything's out in the ether, but they all need to talk to each other. So in this instance, you want to automate the integration between each system. So you might have some on-premise applications. And one of our customers, they've got their ERP set up in Detroit. They have a data warehouse set up in their own data center in Salt Lake City. They have scheduling, risk analysis, GIS components installed in multiple LoadSpring clouds. So here's a way I can get data moving back and forth between them. Now, the image on the right just kind of shows you a sample architecture where users are connecting way over on the right across the public internet into the LoadSpring environment. So this shows you just 4 environments set up, training environments, development environments, test environments, production environments. So I can have a VPN connection between our 2 networks, an always-on IPsec tunnel that your IT group gets to control the rules for. That's for certain types of traffic. Traffic, maybe API, ODBC traffic, things that aren't as portable and secure. You can't run over HTTPS. Some customers go so far as to put an MPLS or put us on their MPLS fabric for those high-end environments. I think of one of our nuclear customers that has P6 and Activera at LoadSpring. Their passport work order management systems are at each of their stations. Well, in that case, it's such an intensive resource-hungry integration. We're on their MPLS, so we just appear as another node in their environment. Makes it very easy for those resource-intensive integrations. We can also do the web services integrations. In that instance, we don't need a VPN, don't need the complexity or the cost for it. It's simple to just set up the environment, point it to another web server, and they can exchange information. LoadSpring is a traffic cop in this instance. We're the referee. If an integration goes bump in the night, let's say because one of our processing companies or processing customers that is sending chemicals data back and forth, if their ERP system tries to create a project in their scheduling system at LoadSpring, but there's already a project there by that name, it's going to throw a flag. It's going to send an email to the stakeholders and tell them, sorry, this integration failed for this reason. Well, now they have a way of getting in, okay, I see what happened here. Let's fix the project name and let's resubmit it. Okay, so we can help you to keep that environment running, keep it secure, keep it fast, and make sure that all the information is sending data back and forth with whatever the software application permits. Some things have to be done with an API. We need a VPN then. Some are internal to the data center. Some customers, some of our higher ed customers, they even have an old school batch SFTP process that dumps data out maybe on a weekly basis. PGP encrypts it, SFTP pushes it, decrypts it, and loads it. They know that it works. It's their internal process. It's reliable. It's trusted. It's supported by them. So there are lots of options available to you here for that one. Okay, now that everything's integrated, not that they're all talking to one another. Now, if we go ahead and look at, well, how about reporting? Okay, I heard this great thing that I can do cross-application reporting regardless of where the applications sit. Well, the clouds do provide that for our project customers now. So it depends, in many cases, on what you want to use today. So in some instances, the software vendors provide a reporting tool or a dashboarding tool with their product, like a BI Publisher or Primavera Analytics with P6. Same thing with Trimble, Meridian providing, say, Crystal reports to run with Prolog. Other tools may use SSRS. They may use, we're getting to Power BI at that point too. Those vendors have built-in ETLs, so it's a supported, upgraded, documented environment to push the data back and forth when you need it. Some customers come to us and say, we have expertise in a tool like Qlik or Power BI. We don't know Crystal reports. Right? We've invested at an enterprise level in these other third-party tools. Okay, well, that's fine too. We can point those tools directly to this LoadSpring Cloud data source. Doesn't matter where it sits. Okay, we give you the data. You can make a look as you need and see fit. Now, the images on the screen here show you the LoadSpring Cloud platform with a couple of images of our Insight dashboard. Okay, we've built out multiple connectors. So the bottom right image shows me a connector to P6 and a connector to the Aries Prism G2. That allows the system to show me SPI and CPI and build up my S curves. Right? It's pulling data, in this case, from multiple data sources at LoadSpring. Well, we can also tie it to a data source in another cloud or back on your premise, so you get that one place for it all. The image up top shows you our project map, which is pulling data from those back-end power user systems tied to geocoded coordinates and project health, right? Red, blue, green, show me what I need to see out here. The big thing we're doing, and you need to make sure you follow, is pull the security roles from the applications. So using web services, we're abiding by the security profiles that are set up so that users only see what you want them to see. Now, depending on the applications and the reporting and dashboard components you choose, make sure you've got the licensing in check. Because if you're interacting with that data, there's oftentimes licenses required. Some customers, depending on the app, they may send out an emailed PDF on a weekly basis. I think that may be enough for them. Others, one of our larger engineering firms doing a lot of work in the power space, they have their own internal SharePoint environments built out for the portal, and on a nightly basis, those reports are generated at LoadSpring and they're loaded onto their SharePoint instance internally. So now they can get to it on their own environment. So don't forget about the cross-application reporting we can do here. So last question I have is to bring your own dashboard party. Which reporting and dashboarding solutions are you using for your projects today? The way this is set up, I'm asking, are you using tools that are bundled with the app, like a BI Publisher and Crystal Reports, some third-party solution, maybe like a Qlik or a Tableau or Power BI? A lot of customers still using Microsoft Excel. That's what they know. That's what they can get their data in and out of. Or you're still searching for one. You haven't decided on a reporting and dashboarding tool. All right, let's see. So this will be the last question for me here. I think there's a question coming in too. So let me just see if I can read this one off. Okay, there are a couple of questions up there that I missed. I apologize. So one question came in on, when you're talking about CAD, BIM, 3D, 4D applications that are hosted, let's see, they require very high-powered PCs and GPUs. If you use LoadSpring, do you still need high-powered GPUs on your machines, or can you use a local laptop? So in that instance, and thank you for the question, no, you do not need those high-powered workstations and GPUs any longer. When you're running the 3D graphics components through LoadSpring, it's whatever normal PCs you have. It's going to use the LoadSpring GPUs, the way our servers include those type of graphics like an NVIDIA Tesla M60 card. That gives you the GPU power, so it allows you to offload that from the workstations. Let me jump down here. So that was the last content slide I have. Let me hit a couple more of these questions that came in. Let's see. Can I integrate my cloud data with my Power BI environment? Great question, thank you, and yes, you can. So when you're talking about the third-party systems, you can point Power BI out of Azure to a BI data gateway within LoadSpring. That will allow you to pull data from any data source on our side and present it back in your own tools. Another question, or a mid-sized AEC firm evaluating different identity management solutions. It's a major initiative for 2018. Understand LoadSpring can support this. How do subcontractors, owners, etc. get access if they're not employees of our company? So we've built a model that gives you closed or hybrid options. So if you want to provide third-party users access to LoadSpring without them having a network account in your corporate environment, you can do that. You can segregate them into a separate part of the LoadSpring cloud so that they can log in, they get access to the data you want them to see. But the users, the employees that have network accounts, they're set up to federate, single sign-on in, no usernames, no passwords required. Let's see here. Another question came in about, let's see, on-premise applications integrate with applications in LoadSpring Cloud. Yep, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Apologize, this probably came up as I was getting on that slide. Yes, you can go through and integrate the applications with one another as if they're sitting side by side. So the fact that the internet's between them, the cloud's between them, it'll be seamless to your users. New question. If you use LoadSpring for project management applications, who supports the end users? Good question. Sorry I didn't touch on that one earlier when we hit the support component. So you have, as a customer, a license with a software vendor. You're their licensee. You're paying them maintenance. You're paying them 22% on average of that list license price every year to get functional support from them to be eligible for upgrades. So while you'll still be able to open cases through LoadSpring, LoadSpring is going to help you support these applications at a system level. If it becomes a functional issue and our service team is not involved, we can get you in touch with the software vendor and set up an environment with three-way web conference to make sure that you're getting the functional help you need through the software vendor and it's working and vetted and qualified in our environment. Okay, I think that's all the questions I see up there so far. I don't have any other polls to send out, so thank you all for joining us and sharing in there. We'll work with Christian and team to share some results a little bit later. I know you'll still have access to the handouts and such that are in the system.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar, Latest Cloud Project Management Trends. If you have any additional questions, please email us at information@loadspring.com, and our experts will get back to you shortly. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. So on behalf of the LoadSpring team, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.